I will just do a brief introduction of our moderator for this session. Dr. Camille A. McHale is a provost and vice president of academic affairs at the University of the Virgin Islands. Previous to this, she served as dean of the College of Science and Mathematics. As provost, she led the development of UVI's first PhD program in creative leadership for innovation and change, which graduated its first PhD recipients in 2018. She has successfully served as principal investigator on a variety of grant projects from National Science Foundation, NASA, Department of Defense, and the Mathematical Association of America. Her grant projects have totaled more than $10 million for the university. She currently serves as lead PI and research lead for the Center for the Advancement of STEM Leadership. Dr. McHale received her PhD in mathematics from Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. Her undergraduate degree in mathematics is from Bates College in Maine. Additionally, she completed a master's certificate in creativity studies and has written a number of peer-reviewed articles and chapters on leadership and creativity. Her current research interests are in the areas of creativity studies, creativity and leadership, STEM education, and STEM leadership. So we welcome her this afternoon to lead this wonderful group of panelists.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So as was just stated, I am provost, but today I'm here all about creativity. So my name is Camille McHale, and I'm delighted to be joined by three panelists here, two of whom are products of our PhD program in creative leadership for innovation and change. But everyone here is really talking about what can we do in our day-to-day jobs, our day-to-day work environments, to make sure that we have a creative inducing environment. So if I may just ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and then, yes.
I guess I start.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leslyn Tong, and I am a product of UVI in every sense of the word. I got my undergraduate degree in communications here and went on to do my master's in school counseling and guidance, and recently graduated with my PhD in creative leadership for innovation and change. I also do hold a graduate certificate in creative studies or creativity and change leadership from the Buffalo State University. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike Fazio. I'm the non-UVI person up here on the panel. I'm the non-PhD person up here on the panel, so I believe I'm in the wrong room.
No. You're in the right room.
Nonetheless, I will try and add to the panel. I am the CEO and managing partner for a small business, but a national training and consulting organization called Workforce 180. We're a US and a US VI licensed business, proudly working here in the territory since 2009. I have one of our former team members in the audience with us, the entrepreneurial, successful Adrian Glenn, proud to see him here. And our main responsibility as an organization is to serve government agencies, nonprofits, and any other organization that's assisting people find employment and helping employers find people. So I'm really interested in being on the panel today, and thank you for having me.
And my name is Deborah Finley Jackson. I am also a graduate of the PhD program at UVI. I also have a master's certificate in creativity from Buffalo State. My undergraduate degree is from the University of Michigan in African Studies. My master's degree from Long Island University in elementary education. And I have a seminary degree, a Master's of Divinity from New Brunswick Theological Seminary. And I am a retired lifetime educator transplanted to St. Thomas. And after about a year of just going to the beach and relaxing, I realized my brains were turning into mashed potatoes. And so I found the PhD program and UVI. And also, I am a member of the Creativity Lab that operates out of UVI, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Excellent. So you are in for a treat. You know, one of the things that UVI has done is it has embraced creativity. It's part of our strategic plan. our strategic, well, creativity and innovation. Our strategic plan is greatness through innovation. And so one of the things that you can do with the strategic plan is you can create it, you can name it, you can make it look flashy, and you can keep it on the shelf, right? Or you can create it, you can name it, you can make it look flashy, and then you can figure out how to implement. So one of the things that we have done is really focused on creativity, and I think that's why we're all here today as part of the Governor's Workforce Summit is to really talk about creativity and creativity in the workplace. So I have some questions for our panelists, and so one of the things, especially with regard to workforce, is that there was a study, I think in 2010, by IBM, and they interviewed or surveyed some CEOs, and 60% of the execs in the study ranked creativity number one in terms of leadership qualities needed. Almost all of them ranked creativity pretty highly, and 60% ranked it as number one. So Mike, is this something that you're seeing? What are you hearing from employers?
Well, it's interesting. That's the CEOs ranked creativity number one? Okay, because I've seen a different survey of employees and what they rank in leadership skills, and number one was integrity. So I, as a CEO, firmly believe in creativity because we like to say we're predictably unpredictable in the marketplace. We've got to keep our competitors guessing. We've got to continue to think of ways to become unique and memorable and different. And we talk a lot about the purple squirrel. Purple squirrel is something, if you ever saw it, you'd never forget it.
Yeah.
So we try to be a purple squirrel as an organization. We want people to remember us in this crowded field of consulting, and every employer should think the same way, because I believe the tables have turned. Instead of employers interviewing candidates, it's now become very much candidates interviewing employers.
That is
So
so
being
true.
being creative is going to make a big difference as we move forward in the world of work.
Yeah. So you think creativity is really important, not just for the employee showing up, where the employer was in the driver's seat, so to speak, saying, well, we want creativity. What you're saying is that we, as employers, also have to show up creatively, or else you will be part of the Great Resignation.
100%. Yep. Employers have to become different than they've ever been before. I've worked enough years to have been through recessions, great recessions, high turnover, low turnover, the Great Resignation, a pandemic. And today, going forward, the pressure is on the employer end to create a culture that people want to be a part of, to create a career pathway, to create significant recognition platforms, because we talk about millennials and Gen Zs and et cetera, and what they all have in common, the younger generation, let's just call them, is they grew up in what I call the like generation. So everything you were posting online, you measured likes, and that shouldn't go away in the workplace. You have to people want recognition in today's workplace, so I think employers need to do a better job in that.
Excellent. I'm going to pivot on that a little bit with regard to the recognition in the workplace, because there are studies about that from a creativity expert, Teresa Amabile, that talk about that. So it's not new, but it's now so much more obvious that this works. So Debbie, right? So we want these creative people, right? So what do? Do we test them before they come in? How do we find, or is it that we need to go out there and look for creative people? What's an employer to do?
Well, that's certainly an option, because there are tests, assessments that you can give employees to test for creativity. However, what studies show, and I think if we all just think about it, we know that everyone is creative. Everyone can be creative. And if we just think about the definition of creativity is something, a thought that's new or useful. And if we've ever had any kind of thought that's new or useful, then we're creative. what we might need to do rather than hire people is train, do some training. The Creativity Lab does offer that service where people can, we've worked with units in UVI and with some nonprofits as well to help people understand first what creativity is and how to access it in their own lives and in their workspaces. And so it really takes two factors. One is that you would like to access your creativity, and two, that you get some training. And think about children. When children are young, they're automatically creative. The stories that the way they have their little tea parties, or the way they have trucks and tell stories, we're born as creative individuals. And then we go to school. And then we have to sit in our seats and we have to listen to the teacher. And then we come adolescence, and then we want to look like everybody else. Heaven forbid we should look different from anybody else. And so our creativity is not gone, but we suppress it. And as adults, we need to return to that creative nature that we had when we were children. And because employers are looking for creativity, because the world is different, then as an employer who would want a workforce to have that creativity, then it's up to me to provide professional development for my employees. And there are specific tools that we have that can help people. We have people who come to our sessions, and the first thing they say is, I'm not creative. And by the time they leave, they say, oh, okay, I can do this. So that would be my response.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really happy to hear that, because I'd hate for us to turn people away, not because they weren't creative, but because they think they weren't creative. So knowing that there's training that employers can do is great. Another thing that Mike spoke about is the environment. Like, it's up to the employers to provide the environment, because we can train all we want and then we can just shut it down, right? With one big word, no. So, Leslyn, what should employers do internally now to help with making sure that we get them in, we train them, and now we let them loose and give them a chance to be creative? Do we all have to just send people to work at Google?
No. So according to the research, the relationship between the individuals and their work environment is very important, right? This we refer to as climate, or in the studies we say press, and that is referring to a model that was developed a few years ago, 1961 was it? Called the 4Ps model, where you talk about how persons can be creative, how the environments can be creative, etc. And so the patterns of behavior that characterize life, if you will, within an organization is what is viewed as contributing to creativity. And factors that employers and employees should be aware of that could inhibit or encourage creativity. And then some of those include the perceptions that persons have about the organization themselves, the organization itself, whether they feel that they are part of it, are they part of the vision, is it inclusive of everyone? And so those are things that employers need to look out for as well. And so focusing on the creativity literature, I'll dive a little bit in there. We learned that about some research studies that speak to assessment. We spoke about assessment a bit. And there is one particular assessment, it's called the situational outlook questionnaire. And that speaks to ways in which employers can ensure that employees feel really safe and comfortable within an organization to give input. Employers some of the things that they should look forward to or look into is to ensure that employees are part of the day-to-day operations of the organization, right? That they are part of the long-term goals, that their vision, the employee's vision and the vision of the organization are aligned in some ways. Because if there is that if they're not aligned, then employees do their own thing, organizations on the other side, and there is that disconnect that does not feed into a creative type of environment for both the employee and the employers. Our employees allowed some level of freedom in terms of their independence, if you will, to do things that makes them feel passionate or brings out the vision and the mission of the organization? Do they feel emotionally safe in the relationships that they establish or create within the organization with their peers and with the persons who are supervising or leading them in one capacity or the other? And that speaks to what we refer to as trust and openness. The environment that is created within the workplace definitely can affect or influence a number of processes, including problem solving, decision making, communication, how people communicate with each other. And so it is important for there to be some sort of synergy taking place, that employers and employees are encouraged and supported to express themselves. And this could be done by providing them with some time that they can use to really build on ideas, elaborate on ideas, come up with new ideas, work with others within teams and so forth. Ways in which that they might find opportunities to discuss and assess different viewpoints that may come up, opposing viewpoints, talk about the experiences that they have. And so to wrap up my response, which maybe is a bit winded, but just look at me. I would also like to add that, maybe reiterate that to ensure that persons are feeling safe enough to be able to express themselves within the workplace, that employees and employers, and we're talking, they told us we were to speak to employers, and hopefully most of you here are employers as well as employees too, that you're giving persons that place where they can feel comfortable. And one of the things in creativity, and Debbie and Dr. McHale too can probably speak a little bit more about that in terms of failure, right? We tend to think that failure is this monster, this thing that just really takes away all our drive, of our energy. And in creativity, we say, no, failure is where you really should get your energy from to become a better, or to create that better experience. And so for employers to encourage a climate that supports creativity, we say, help your employees to find that place where they can express themselves, where they can embrace failure as a tool, a step to move forward and advance the vision of the organization. Okay, so.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, and don't worry, you're going to have a chance to ask questions. I know it's a panel, but I thought I'd leave some.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, but Mike, what I want to know, I mean, we've heard all this about what type of environment really fosters creativity, and you spoke a little bit about it yourself. Are you finding this? What are you finding that employers are doing? Is this something they care about, and do they know how to do this?
Two answers to that. It
Yes.
is something they care about, and most don't know how to do it.
Okay. Oh,
So what's happened
we
since
can
the
keep
pandemic?
our jobs.
Yeah, because what's happened since the pandemic, we found a lot where people immediately were able to adapt to people working from home in organizations where you could work from home. And I follow this process towards change, which most people are afraid of, right? Is that we're all evolving gradually. Evolution is something that's happening slowly, but you can't see it. It's kind of like grass. So I know it's growing, I just can't see it growing. And evolution leads to innovation, right? We're trying new things and trying to get things done in a better way, hopefully. And that means we're adapting. So adaptation plays a key role until we ultimately achieve change. So I think what most workforce leaders or employers in general that we've spoken to have encountered is this situation during the pandemic where they were forced to evolve, innovate, and adapt overnight.
March 13th.
Right? March 13th, I can tell you where I was, what I was doing, and where my youngest daughter was. She was in Europe backpacking around, and I was buying her a one-way ticket home. so that she can get back to the States. But, you know, from how employers and leaders reacted, which was, I think, outstanding, where now employees were working from home, they were being trusted, office space was being abandoned. However, now what I've seen a lot of leaders do is they've panicked. And they've sent everybody back to the office. And that's driven down morale. It's put us back in the old culture. I feel stagnant. I can't feel creative. This is not the culture I want. My friend works at a more creative and fun organization because they work from home 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week, 5 days a week. And I think every survey I've seen from for employees is that they feel as or more productive working from home than they do working at the office 5 days a week. So for many, let's just say, tenured leaders of organizations, they've had the hardest time adapting and being innovative so they can achieve the change they need to stay relevant in today's work world.
But it's pretty scary, right? Because,
It
yeah,
is.
we had to do it, and we sent everyone home, and we kind of made it through the 2.5 years, and work happened. And you could really tell the people who were working and the people who were just at home. But work happened. But it's kind of scary because a lot of times, I'll ask Debbie this, a lot of times people think that creativity, because we want creativity, but there's no structure. People are, who knows what they're doing when they're at home. You know, people are just doing whatever they want, and it's kind of this scary letting go. So is it just no structure? You just do what you want, and that's how, I think it was, what's that shoe company, Zappos, that had, where, you know, it was kind of a flat, they call it a leaderless leadership, leaderless management, where no one really manages anyone. Is that what we need for creativity to thrive?
I don't know about Zappos. I don't know. I think myself, I would love a leaderless situation, but in the real world. Yeah, when we think of creativity, we think of the arts. We think of music and art and dance, free-flowing and wonderful. And that is creativity. And creativity shows up in other ways as well. Creativity begins with a thought. A person has a thought, whether it's about the drama, the play they're writing, whether it's about the music they're going to write or play, or whether it's about the art piece. It begins with a thought. And to enhance those creative thoughts, so think about someone sitting in a cubicle, you know, with walls around and nothing to look at but the computer and maybe piles of papers. Does that feel like a creative environment? Does that feel like there's room for you to do anything except look at the computer and look at the papers? And especially now after the pandemic, as Mike said, now we're coming back to the office. We've been at home. We've had on our nice shirts and our shorts on Zoom. We've been able to get up and do what we wanted to in our homes while still getting the work done. And now being forced back into an office, we can start to feel very constrained. And then on the other hand, we have companies like Google, where there's ping pong tables and candy bars and lounge areas and tracks and whatever they have. I haven't been, but it sounds amazing. And so when we look at that situation, we say, well, these people are playing. They're not, what are they doing? They're sitting around and they're chatting and they're having coffee and espresso and all of that. Nothing's getting done. But what research shows is that if we want to create, we need to put ourselves in a position to feel free, to feel open, to be able to tune into an idea that maybe we've never had before. And that's not going to come just from looking at a pile of papers. So in a work, I started to say normal workplace, but let me not judge it. In a workplace that's not like a Google, what can we do so that our employees can still have access to that freedom? We might not have the space like Google. We might not have, most offices don't have ping pong tables and pool tables and all of that. But what we can do is train our people so that if I'm working on a problem at my desk and I'm stuck and I can't move, I can't think of what I want to do next, there's some tools that we can use in creativity to take us away from our desk. We can close our eyes for a few moments and picture ourselves. My picture is me floating in the water at Megan and just looking at the clouds in the sky. And if I picture that for 2 or 3 minutes and then open my eyes and come back to the work, all of a sudden I'm getting new thoughts and new ideas and moving forward. So there are different tricks and tips, and part of what this is a big plug for the Creativity Lab at UVI, but if you invite us, this is something that we can share with you and show you in your workplaces, in your training. So yeah, when you look at people doing unusual things at work, it can look like nothing's getting done, but in reality, what we know, those in the creativity field know, is that's really an incubator for creativity. And so it's important, if we're in an environment that's looking for creativity, all jobs are not, but if we are, then these are some activities that we can introduce our employees to, and some activities that we can incorporate into the workplace.
Thanks for that. So it sounds like what we're doing is being Google in our mind. If we don't have Google funding, we can, we can, it doesn't mean we can't have Google thoughts. And I think one of the things also that as employees, providing the training does is it also gives people the permission, because some people might feel, I am sitting at my desk, it's not my 15-minute break time yet, I cannot get up, or else they'll think I'm not doing anything. Meanwhile, if we all went through the kind of training together, I'm sitting at my desk, I am stuck, I might need to go take a walk outside, and it needs to be okay, is what you're saying.
And
Okay.
when anyone in the office sees you doing whatever it is, then they get it.
Yeah.
We could even, another thing we can do is just leave little pipe cleaners on everybody's desk or some clay and let people just fiddle with stuff. What we know is that if we're struggling with a problem, if we take our mind off the problem for just a little while and let it rest, then we come back to it and we get some new information. And there are plenty of studies that, I didn't make it up, plenty of studies that speak to that.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit. Okay, so everyone's here and they're saying all right, so now we know we can get people. Now we know we can train people. Now we know that whoever we get, we can train. And we also know that we can do some things internally to enhance creativity and innovation within our within our places of wherever it is that we're working. But how can we recruit these people? What are some creative, innovative types of activities that now employers can do to go recruit? Because we know that it's really hard to recruit these days. So what are you seeing, Mike, in your realm, in terms of some innovation that employees are coming up with in order to get that? Remember, they don't even have to be creative employees, because we can take care of that one once we get them, right?
Yep.
Just to get somebody.
Yeah, recruiting has become a challenge. It really has. I mean, it's just a couple of years ago, we were here at the same facility when the Ritz-Carlton was about to reopen, and we were forecasting about 200 or 300 applicants to show up for 150 jobs. 800 showed up. So that's when recruiting was really easy. Now it's becoming tougher and tougher. But a couple of things I've seen out there that really catch my attention is, number one, every employee we'll talk to, we advise to shorten your job descriptions. I haven't read a job description yet that somebody is perfect for. Every job description is overwritten and overproduced, and it scares more good candidates away than it recruits. It really does. I looked at a few last night. because my youngest daughter is looking for a job in Brooklyn. If anybody's hiring out there, please let me know. So she stops asking me for Venmo money. But she, the job descriptions, because I say that partially in jest, but she shared a bunch with me and asked if she's qualified for them. And that's intimidating, especially to a young person. I've seen a great hiring event that was done by a retail organization in that it was a non-traditional interview. They invited people to an open house, no resumes allowed. You registered at the front desk, and you got a name badge with your first name on it, and you just mingled about. There were soft drinks and some snacks, and you just mingled about with their management team. And they really wanted to really just see what your interpersonal skills were like. So it took the pressure off, and I've got a friend whose son is 20 years old, and he's at a hiring event today in Maryland, and I chatted with him last night, and he's as nervous as could be. Should I wear a jacket? Is this shirt okay? What kind of pants? What about this? Do my socks have to match? I'm like, well, that's a definite yes.
Unless you buy them that way.
Unless you
can.
buy them. Though, for all I know, that's the trend. I don't know. I'm on TikTok, but not that often. So. And listen, it might be, all joking aside, I'm on TikTok, like the governor talked about earlier today. If you want to see creativity, it blows my mind how creative people are on that platform and what they do, whether it's golf lessons, dancing, singing, whatever's happening on there. I'm just so impressed by how creative people are. Now, how do you apply that in the workplace? I mean, you can't come in singing songs and doing dances every day to work, or maybe you can. Maybe you can find a way to transfer. As we always talk about that with people, how do you transfer your skills? So I spoke with somebody who was a veteran before and helps veterans find employment. And one of the challenges they have is how do we share with employers that even though they've never done this particular job, the skills that they acquired in what they were doing in the military can transfer into that type of work. So again, it's getting employers, human resource people, hiring managers, whoever it might be, to open their minds to what the possibilities are, because you talk about training. I usually say it a little bit different. I call it professional development or upskilling or opportunities that create learning lessons for career pathways. Because for training, a lot of times we have an e-learning division in our company, and I try not to use the word training because it's really more than that. And training scares people. It means you're going to teach me something new, and people are afraid of new. It's more work. I'm not going to be good at it. So some of these little things make a big difference. So it's happening. It's gradually happening, but it's not an overnight thing. It's an evolution of the industry, and I think thanks to the workers out there who are pushing back, I've always said we need a revolution to create evolution. I think the worker revolution has happened, and we'll gradually see the evolution of the workplace occur.
Oh, those are some great tips. Great tips.
Thank you.
I like the whole no resumes allowed thing. But for them though, was there a baseline? Like you have to have a blank?
Yeah, I think they
diploma
took from all the applicants the ones they
see. I
considered
see.
for the positions and brought them in.
Yeah.
And I've seen I'll do one more. They brought in like 15 candidates and put them around a table in a training room. And one by one, they asked that person to stand up and explain why they should be hired.
Talk about pressure.
But you know
You're
who doesn't feel the pressure in those situations? The youngest people in the room, because they've been public speaking and being creative as they grow up on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all those platforms. And it was the youngest person in that room. I'll never forget Danielle Simone, who stood up, and as she was talking amazingly for a 22-year-old, I watched grown men my age folding their books because they knew they didn't get the job. They had a better resume, but they couldn't speak and present themselves in a way that she could because they were more traditional in their job search process.
Thanks for that. So I also am a parent of 20-something-year-olds, and I have watched the job, them going through. And one of the things you try to give advice, but you know what? No, I have too many grades to know anything about what's going on anywhere. But our young people, many are choosing, to your point, choosing where to apply to by the ones that don't require a cover letter. And they're like, why am I, if I'm applying to 200, they're going, to do it well, and they also want to do things well. So to do it well, you're going to have to write a personal cover letter, which won't get you anywhere. So why bother with those people that want a cover letter that's going to not make it through HR when there are 50 others that don't require cover letters? So he did get a job, so it worked.
Good for you.
Yes. So last question, Leslie, I think I've only asked you once so far. Yeah. Okay, so we go out there, we do our song and dance, or we have the people coming in do their song and dance. We get people, all kinds of people, and now we put them together, and they all come in having some expectation, and now they have to work as a team and come up with some really cool stuff from me, the employer.
Yeah.
How does that work? I mean, do you just go forth and be creative?
Well, can you hear me? Go forth and be creative. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, to create a team that is creative or considered creative, one needs to employ some strategies, right? In the Creativity Lab, as Debbie said, we've had some training. We do provide some training, and what we feel...
Upskilling.
Upskilling. And what we find with that is that when persons come in, well, there are different schools of thought. There is a school of thought that says that we are all creative, and the other school of thought that says, well, you upskill, train for creativity. And we believe that training, upskilling, I'll try my best to use the appropriate word, is the trick to get in the kinds of teams that you want. One thing with that upskilling is helping persons to understand their creative mindsets, right? With that, with the understanding of your creative mindset or individual creative mindset, and speaking from an employer's perspective, understanding the creative mindset of the employees, then you can put persons together with the skills that they have, that they bring to the table, that would create an environment that would provide an opportunity for the producing of the results that you want. And so with a creative team, first thing to do is understand the mindset or the preferences and train for creativity. That helps to maintain or develop a creative team. And employers can ensure that when the individuals in their organizations get together to work together on projects, they are instead complementing each other, as opposed to, being against each other. And they complement each other with the skills that they bring to the table. So if an employer wants to have a good team, a productive team, a cohesive team, they need to provide those kinds of opportunities where persons can be trained and upskilled for creativity. And we could go deeper into it. I don't know if Debbie wants to talk more about that, but that's the point I'd make, that upskilling training for creativity would be the thing to do together.
Yeah, I could. With one of the processes that we use, there's an assessment that will identify for us our preference in problem solving. Some of us prefer to be clarifiers. Some of us prefer to be ideators. Some of us prefer to be developers. And some of us prefer to be implementers. And with each of those preferences, there are things about us that can annoy other people. So I'm a very high implementer. So what my team has learned is that if I send them a WhatsApp chat message at 5 o'clock, at 5:05, I'm looking for a response, which they don't always provide, which frustrates me. And then another one, if you're a person who's a clarifier, you ask many questions, you want to really understand the problem before you move forward, right? So if I'm that person on the team and I'm working with someone like me, I don't need all of those questions. You told me the problem, here's how we're going to fix it. And if someone is an ideator, they're the ones who like to just throw out idea after idea after idea, and I'm still waiting to get this project done while all these ideas are bouncing around the room. And then there's the developer who wants to make sure that they have the right plan to solve the problem. And they study and look on all sides. And I'm still waiting, and I still don't have this solution ready to go. So in understanding the different preferences and understanding how people work and what they need to do, and understanding that all 4 of those areas are important, it's helped me in the last couple of years to slow my roll and to let people do, respect what people are doing in their own preference. And it saved me from bumping my head, which I have done on many, many occasions. So when we're building a great team, if people can understand the different preferences, then they build a respect for them and an understanding. And it becomes, instead of being annoyed, you're grateful that there's someone preferring to do something that you yourself don't want to do.
Thanks for that. So I want to open it up. I see a lot of head nodding. Who's looking for employers? Who's looking for a different kind of way to operate? Any of that? Shelley.
I have a question. I recently purchased a small little coffee shop here in St. Thomas. I have a small staff of 6. I also have a farm, so I'm doing a lot of menu designing right now. And naturally, a majority of my employees are in their 20s. And the number one issue that I'm really struggling how to tackle this, I would love everyone's input on, is that I can't seem to get through to my employees on being present because they're too busy on their phones.
Oh,
So even though the policy is you can't be on your phone while on shift, anytime they get bored, I'm seeing their phones zap all of their creative time. There goes their sense of even being present for themselves.
yes.
So, and we're on a limited island, a limited group of people to actually even employ. So I can't even approach it as in, okay, you're on your phone 3 times, you're fired. Like, I can't even do that. I want to work with these people. I want to build them, but they have lost their entire ability to be creative, to be present, to even want anything in life because they're too busy watching other people have lives.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
how do I
Yeah.
train them out of this?
I don't have an answer, but just very quickly, it's a real issue. So there was a study, and I'll be really quick. It was a study about students taking a test, doing some kind of cognitive test or something, and they had 3 groups. One that, it's okay, you can have your phone on the table. One, you can bring your phone in, but keep it in your bag. One, you know what, just leave your phone out. And the further away the phone was from them, in none of the cases could they pick up the phone. But the further away the phone was, the better they did on that cognitive test. Yeah, tell your kids that. And it's just because even if you can't pick it up, your mind is there while you're doing something else. But anyone want to take that? I can. All right, so according to that, I'm an ideator, so I can come up with lots of ideas. Half of them won't work, but yes.
Well, listen, there's 2 suggestions, right? Hire older people, right?
So sorry, Dave. They're all.
Well, here-
They're all. It's crack. It's crack to everybody.
Yeah, and listen, I was just about to confess to you that I'm addicted as well to my phone, so I wouldn't be able to work for you. And I can never be far from it. You don't know it's killing me not to look at my phone for this entire session because I suffer, like everybody else, with FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. I don't know what's happening, not just with work, but anything in life. I just feel more comfortable with my phone here. Somebody mentioned up on stage earlier about the Senior Community Service Employment Program, which is a program that's designed to help older workers find employment. And I'll be at a conference in October in Charlotte, which is a youth symposium all about youth, and the workshop I'm hosting is hire an older worker versus hire a younger worker. And we'll have a really interesting exercise is who you would hire. Why not hire an older worker? Older workers typically don't have daycare issues, right? They, jokingly have nothing to do all day, right? So they're happy to come to work in general because it's something to do. And you'll notice in so many places, growing up, the fast food places were all younger people, and now it's all older workers. So, that's a half answer, half truth, half not.
I
consider.
actually do have a suggestion. So one of the things that we know in problem solving and in leadership is that the closer you get to the problem, the better the solutions you get. So what I would propose, because it's what we do, is you invite, no, but what I would is ask them, but you can have I'm semi-serious, but we can train you with how to ask, right? So ask them, okay, let's put the phones on, let's come together and say your wish. What is your desired future state? I wish that that everyone, and you need to also ask yourself, do you put your phone down, right? So I wish that everyone could be more present when they're working and not have distractions. Let's not just say it's a phone, not have distractions. And then let's come up with some ideas. So have the ideas come from them. Then they have buy-in. Then they are part of the solution. And we have ways to do this, and you would get better solutions than a top-down. And I think, so I'm kind of leading into that whole creative leadership approach, which is you lead, leading for and leading with creativity. So that's a creative way to lead, but it's also leading for creativity.
Yeah, and I have an idea that why not make the shop a little Google? So you let them know at this time, I'd like you to help me create a logo, create a website, something on your phone, so they know there's a specified time where they can use their phones, but it's benefiting you. It's not just surfing. And using that same idea of getting their buy-in, what can you do? What can you do with this that can help us at work rather than keep us from working?
Yeah, so Debbie stole my idea, really. Yes. Yeah, kind of think alike after a while. But yeah, I'm going to offer something along the same lines where there is some sort of specific time that persons will be allowed to use their phone. So piggybacking off of what Dr. McHale said with regard to the phones being, or the whatever it was, being far away, the further away from the students, maybe the phone far away, and then there is a specific time, that 15-minute break, you use your phone, maybe to do something as creative as Debbie suggested. Maybe it's a staggered thing. This is your schedule for your phone, because it's kind of difficult to peel people away from their phones these days. Your phone is like your little computer. It's not only a phone to talk to people, it's a phone to check your bank account, check your health stuff, test your blood pressure, everything on your phone these days. So it's kind of difficult, but maybe trying one of those strategies might help you.
So I'm going to go to Leon in a second, but another little anecdote. This was back when phones were new, right? But I remember having this issue in my classroom, when I was in the classroom. And I would walk in the classroom and I'd say, okay, during this time, I will not be on my phone. And I'm asking that you're not on your phone either. If I need to be on my phone because there's an emergency, I'll let you know ahead of time. So unless you're a doctor or your spouse is on their way to have a baby or something, you won't need it for the next hour. And we set that at the beginning. And then one day in class, I even remember whose phone it was that rang. And this is like years ago, because if I look up her graduation, she probably graduated and the whole class turned to her and went, "Are you a doctor?" It was like the funniest thing. But you just kind of make it fun, and then you set the parameters. But Leon.
Good afternoon. So I'm going to give you a name of a friend of mine in Florida. She has the same challenges, and she's been able to overcome it. The first thing is get the culture for them to buy in. So that way it doesn't seem like one person's getting special treatment. It's a culture that they all buy into. Secondly, she allowed them special privileges if they were also participating in social media for her. So now they're pinging, they're saying, hey, guess what the new drink is of the day, yada, yada, yada. And then you bring affinity. Folks start showing up. My friend works here and here. I'll go to support them. And she was able to grow her business during pandemic to the proportion that she opened a second small coffee shop in Tampa. So I'm going to give you the name physically when I'm finished.
That's
and I'll even
awesome.
connect you and her, because I think you guys are in similar, and you'll see how she's been able to grow her business with millennials and Gen Zs. So I think everybody up here said the same thing. But yeah, it's a challenge. But if they buy into it and they create their culture, of course, under your guidelines to some degree, obviously, but yes, then they will feel like, hey, this is a shared, hey, when we're on our phone, we know we have to drop a TikTok, we need to drop a social Facebook tag, and obviously that brings more money to your business.
Creates a hashtag for your for your company that they can use.
Excellent. Another question here. I think you need to use the mic because we're being recorded.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My question is if the job is not a creative job, it's more of a formula job, how do you make it creative, or how can you, bring that creativity so you bring joy? Because people want joy in their work, and, and to make it a fun environment. Our employees interact with our customers, but we are opening a marketplace here in one of the hotels. And the formula is, it's coffee and milk, and, unless the guest wants it creatively, we don't want people making creative drinks. And we don't want them creatively pricing things and creatively displaying things, But how do you make it, that creativity? And could we call on you to come in and maybe help us do some training?
Yes.
Yes.
I want them creative to an extent.
I have some ideas.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. There are so many jobs that it's just not room really for creativity. However, perhaps in your situation, the creativity would come through customer service. Perhaps the way the guests are being greeted, or, I don't know the business. But perhaps, and that in itself, I know for me, when I'm helping someone, I get a certain amount of joy from that. So perhaps that's something that could be translated to the workers.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that because, if I'll go into a certain Dunkin' Donuts back home, because the staff, as simple as their jobs are constantly making it a pleasant experience, to the point where when I get my bag, there's always a message written on my bag. And I will choose that one which is further from where I live than the one that's closer to me. So giving them that kind of freedom in perhaps more of a mundane assembly line type of job. It doesn't take much to make 2 egg and cheese wraps. You put them on the plate, you stick it in the microwave, but the freedom to create the message on the bag and make that customer smile, really, it makes my day whenever I go. Yep.
So one more question I have for you guys, since you're doing training conversations, how is the university addressing the remote culture, the remote etiquette? Obviously, by the time they come to us, everybody believes it's just jump on Zoom, jump on Teams, and a lot of it is being left behind with the communication, collaboration, the time tracking, all the other things that go along with remote work culture. How are you guys addressing that now that the remote world is fully opened up and being really appreciated? How are you preparing, or do you have help for companies that are bringing folks in and it still seems like a sticker shock for them? They just think they're going to get on Teams and that's remote work, but it really isn't.
Right. Oh. So I know we weren't, that wasn't what we were going to address today, but I don't know that we're addressing it specifically. I think the companies probably are, right? In that they have to set the parameters, because remote work and remote classes are 2 very different things. So I don't know that we have the answer. As the creativity lab and creativity training, we can probably help you to come up with some ways to address that within your institution, but I think it's something that we should be addressing. And maybe they are in the School of Business, but I am not entirely sure. But I wanted to add just something to what if the work isn't creative? And one of the things, again, going back to, one of my favorite creativity writers, Teresa Amabile is her name, if you ever read anything by her. And she talks about small wins. Small wins is very important. And having people have buy-in to where they're working. So as you were talking, even with regard to whether it's a coffee shop or whatever, the first thing I thought of was Funny Hat Day. Okay, so I know that sounds like middle school, but the other thing I thought about was, wouldn't it be fun for each one to create a drink, and then there could be a competition every week? Mondays it's Camille's cocoa caramel coffee. Whatever that is. It sounds good, right? I was ready. And then they can hashtag it, and then they can, at the end of the week, whoever sold the most of their drink gets a little coffee or
Ladies
something.
and gentlemen, I introduce the ideator of the group.
Yeah, but I just think, again, having people feel a part of is what's going to help them be creative for that. And so it's not just being creative for creativity's sake, because that's not really what you want, or else I can wear non-matching socks to work, and that's fine. But what you want is, how can you add that and have them have buy-in? And I think it is somehow getting them to feel a part of, be recognized, and be feel a win. And even just the creation of the drink is a small win. It's not the selling, but the fact that you created something and you celebrate that. So celebrate the small wins, and people will feel like they're being celebrated.
Because I can just imagine me having the Leslin Lovable whatever drink, and all of my family and friends, the entire third floor of the provost, of the president's, of the third floor conference room would be attending to buy my drink, because I'm happy to show them my creation. My name is attached, so both of you could probably use that as a good.
Actually, I did propose that idea, and we're working on it, but I just can't get them to work on their drink because they're busy on their phones.
But use the phone to find.
You got to tackle the phone thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 more minutes in this session. It's been really wonderful. Do we have another question from anyone or comments? We have some. So another thing about creativity is that we know that we don't have all the answers, and that answers live everywhere. So yes.
I have a comment more so than
Yes.
a question. I'm an employer. I'm an HR director. I am not of the millennial generation, but I actually love what's happening with the millennial generation and how it's forcing the world to change and how it's forcing employers to change and be creative. And we're moving away from the traditional. I am of the generation where we probably right out of the generation that went to work for somebody and worked for somebody for 30 years. Stressed out every day, don't have enough for themselves or their families. And I think that the younger generation saw that and are not interested in that paradigm whatsoever.
Yes.
And it's forcing employers to be creative. And I think that there's still a little bit of pushback, resistance to that change because we like what happened before. It was predictable. But I really love what's happening now in how it's forcing everyone to be creative, and they are very much concerned about their own mental health, their work-life balance. We talked about it for many years in HR, but we were not really about
Lip
it.
service.
Absolutely. And this generation is forcing that. And it's a matter of work-life balance is near and dear to me. And if you're not offering that as an employer, I'm not interested in working here. So it's really forcing employers to have that work-life balance for everyone, not just the millennials, but millennials and Gen Zers, but it creates an atmosphere of work-life balance for everyone. So I may be in the minority, but I actually love what's happening right now.
I agree. So I don't know if I so disagreed with the young man who said, listen, I want to come fresh on Monday. Did you hear that? I was thinking he was here to find a job. And I think, you know, for you to say, can you show up tomorrow, is kind of not respecting him, right? Like, you don't think he might have to go get his car fixed tomorrow? So yes, I think they are forcing us to really remember that it's not all about work. But we also want to make work fun. And for them, not fun. Fun is such a hard word, but you want to make it interesting, meaningful, having them feel like they're part of something. And I think that is when creativity really thrives. So I want to thank our panel. I thought they were excellent. Yes.
Thanks. It was a
And thank you
pleasure.
also for your questions. This has really been great. Thank you.